If they're not making it, they're going to make cuts in expenses until they make their 30%. What you run into is, I need 30%, I need 30%, I need 30%, and it starts to become an arc going up on a graph. And that kind of growth is unrealistic in a long term. And so realize, honestly, if you're in a company trying to monetize things, that if you're making a decent profit, can take care of your family and take care of your employees, and you're making good money, and maybe you can buy that yacht. You don't need 16 yachts. You only need one yacht. And that's where I think companies have gone kind of awry, is they need that 16th yacht. It's like, no, you had one yacht. You're making good profit. Feed it back to the community. Feed it back into your games. Feed it back into your developers. So that's my big shtick on that. But that's the corporate environment we're in right now, you know?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. It's a very it probably even more so competitive nowadays because of so much technology rapidly being released. It's so many more companies now. I believe Algon came into the stream and now he's wondering about DAOC. Yeah. So Algon, I can kind of summarize. Eternal or Zackerias or Adam here, our friend.
Yeah, Adam works.
He mentioned earlier that he was a content and staffer for DAOC, so he got to kind of see firsthand, the kind of behind the scenes for beta testing some of the early things in the game.
Yep.
And
I had made it up to senior designer. I made it to the top of the rank as far as you can go on content, and ended up training a lot of the new people coming on. Great game, and as I had said, a lot of our conversation, if he's missed it, he should go back and read it is all, or listen to it, excuse me. But there's that transitional period where they were still allowed to do fantastic, wonderful, creative things with their game, and DAOC was like the epitome of it, right? Like Warhammer is shut down, all the other things they've done is shut down. DAOC is still alive and going today, and that's a testament to their creativity and to the Mythic Studio, because they really did put out a banging good game, just like DFC, you know?
Right. And I mean, as long as we're on that vein, I mean, what do you think about the new project for the next DAOC?
Camel Unchained, Jacob's.
Right.
So I know Andrew Meggs, and I know I'm gonna remember. I'm blanking on names, sadly, because I know the artist, and he's a really good artist. The main artist, Andrew Meggs, is the lead programmer. Rob Denton, I've spoken to a few times. We actually kind of keep in touch a little bit on Facebook, all of us. And in fact, I mean, there's a hidden group on Facebook for Mythic employees, and we all still talk very actively. We still have a really good creative community where we bounce ideas off each other. It's kind of like a behind the scenes thing you guys probably don't know about, but it exists. As the studio may be gone, we're still a group on Facebook, just keeping it real, still talking with each other. It's a cool thing. But I think it's an interesting idea. I have not put I gave them $1,000 to get their platinum level Kickstarter, so I got into the betas and I got a good seat for when they launch. But I have not paid attention since, and it kind of goes for me. I'm tired of this early access, give us money for early access kind of thing. The advent that the gaming has gone. Just release a good game. I'm tired of paying for things to flop. So I kind of just have ignored it, honestly. So I can't give you a really good answer, except that I'm stoked. I know that Jacobs is very, very smart man. He run a very successful studio. He made some very successful games. And when things started going downhill, people need to realize, and I'm not saying this is a good or bad thing, he was bought out, right? Hey, we're going to give you this much money. You stay on for a year to oversee this transition for EA taking over, and then you're out the door. And so they had taken over from him, and a lot of people like to blame Jacobs for things going downhill like Warhammer, but it's like, no. They gave him his payoff, and he's out the door. He didn't have choices in those matters, and so I think he's painted kind of unfairly. At the same time, you become successful, you have a great company, and he sold it for a lot of money. I'm not going to say how much, but it's public information. He made a lot of money, And then he went and made his own studio again, where there's no corporation. He has that creative environment that made these games we all love. I'm expecting good things from it. Only good things from it, right?
Nice. That's a very good point. I'm curious to see what you would say to the follow-up question by Anonymous. He says,
Sure.
Apparently he speaks a different tongue, natively. So what would you say is a good way to practice, learning English?
Learning English.
Or improving it.
A lot of my experience is that a lot of people learn English from English media, so much as like movies and TV series. I've had a lot of people I know in Holland that learned English from watching Friends, because Friends was huge in Holland, apparently, right? Um, and honestly, there'll be some slang and everything else in there, but because there's a visual reference to what someone is saying and what's going on, if you watch something media wise, interactive wise, you're going to learn a little bit better because you have context clues that your eyes that you can pick up on. So you really want to watch media, you really want to go there. And then when it starts to get to the nuts and bolts thing, you got to do the work and just pull out that dictionary of Google and start doing it. And it sucks, but you can do it. Everyone, has the capacity. So that's my best advice.
Yeah, and even things like radio, you can listen to like free radio, or you've got,
Indeed.
if you have the internet, which is apparent, you can do Twitch streams and just listen, fall asleep listening to somebody that may be describing something or reading a book, or so whatever it may be. Absolutely. It seems from your typing that you seem to be doing pretty well. So don't be too hard on yourself. And
say the grammar and spelling, besides the second word English being misspelled, you're fine. Everything looks fantastic. And that's the odd thing, because I am a programmer, but I started writing stories and almost should have been an English major, because Lori Higherup, who is a brilliant writer, gods, if she ever goes onto a studio, guys, follow her. She's fantastic. The only reason I got the job at Mythic was that my father was dating a paralegal at the time. Now, legal people are super precise with their English, super perfect. The story I had to write to get into Mythic, I gave to this paralegal. She proofread it, made 1,000,000 corrections. I submitted it. I got hired because Lori said, "Wow, you have better grammar than I do." That's the only reason I got hired, is because I had a paralegal read over the English, right? So that all being said, reading from you, your English is fine. I'm telling you right now, your English is great. So just keep up whatever you've been doing as well. If you've gotten this far, keep doing it. Your English is great, man.
Okay, so we've got Algon. He says, do you first of all, do you think there were design mistakes in DFC, and if so, do you think they were addressed in DAOC? Let's start with that.
So we talked a little bit earlier about the realm imbalances that we kind of liked. And I think they narrowed in on that as far as DAOC went, where they had the stereotypical and iconic classes and races, but they really narrowed down as to how to really capitalize on that too and give it a flavor. So each realm had a flavor. Hibernia, is the magic realm, and they had the best casters, and Midgar had the best melee, and Albion had kind of like the best healer support. It had minstrels and clerics and paladins and you name it, mercenaries. As far as mistakes, the whole home invasion thing, and this is going against the grain a little bit from what I've said before. The home invasion thing, they kind of pulled out and said, we're just going to have a contested area, the frontiers, that we're going to keep contested. And I think that worked well for the newer generation coming up, where they wanted a safe environment to hunt without being ganked and stuff like that. Now, against the grain, because we want that in Darkness Rises, right? So, but as far as like looking at it as a company, yeah, they did that right by moving away from home invasion and just having a frontier. So,
Yeah, it's interesting, thinking how, there wasn't quite the same experience as far as like getting on a boat, waiting for the anticipation, like, do you know why, they may have gone that route rather than just making a literal 3D version of DFC?
So, and so that's a little misleading because they did have that when it originally launched. They had the teleport pads, and you had to go buy a necklace to teleport to whatever realm you wanted to go, and then there's a 15-minute timer to wait on these mages that would teleport you over. Now, the constitution and the item loss and stuff kind of hindered that, because even if you died, you just go right back up on that pad and go back again. So they kind of lost that there. But in the earlier years of DAOC, they did have that. You got on a teleport pad, had to wait, and then you were clustered into one area, and then there was one big funnel, a mile gate, kind of like the docks, where you'd have walls all around where they could camp that mile gate, and now you have to break through this one funnel. So they had that earlier on, and then when DAOC started to evolve, they started putting boats that you could take. Now, literally, like DAOC, but the problem with that is you could jump off the boat at any time, swim underwater, come up behind this weird tower where no one knew where the fuck you were. So they actually hurt that. So DAOC there, I think, hurt themselves when they got rid of this teleport ceremony. The New Frontiers was a big success because of the keeps and how they would damage and how you could take them, but they really lost out on that waiting cycle that I wish they really hadn't. So
Right, yeah, that's kind of been my experience. I played DAOC for, probably a couple months or something like that. And, I did find, I think I played like a Thane character and I really liked it. But, on the whole, in my limited experience, I just didn't quite feel that, not that it was supposed to be, but, that it wasn't quite what I expected. I think that even now, making a 3D version of the old Darkness Falls, the Crusade, sounds amazing. And I think that, I guess it's apparent in Camel Unchained and maybe some other things that Mark Jacobs has done as to what he enjoys and what he likes to create. So he very much focuses on those three areas of the world, Vikings and Celts and all that.
Well, it's rich and robust, man. There's plenty of stuff to draw on. I'll comment on why you may have felt that way, and just from my perspective. And it's one of those, big terms you use, it's flowery language you use in a corporate environment, and it's called impact, right? And we'll go to a 3D example first. If you are playing a first-person shooter and start shooting shotguns and start killing people, and they just, drop right where they're standing, okay, that was fun. If you have a little kickback, your gun aims up a little bit, and this person flies backwards, that's impact. Literally and figuratively. You feel like you're part of the game because, wow, it actually had some, like, real reactive things that happened. And so one of the great things about Darkness Rises that I'm looking forward to is impact in a different way. Again, your loot being taken away, your constitution getting you close to death. It's you're involved and encapsulated in this game, and whether it's a first-person shooter where your gun aims up a little bit and you get thrown back, or dude, your gear and shit's really important and you can get it fucking stolen. It's the feeling that makes you feel like you're actually involved in the game. And Darkness Falls did step away from that a bit. The risk reward system, I think, is kind of why it may not have been as impactful to you,
Right, exactly. Anonymous says, so what do you think about Python as a language? He said he feels that it's popular at the moment. Do you agree with that?
Each language has its ups and downs, right? It has its intended uses and non-intended uses. One of the things a lot of developers will say is that, like, Python is going to be bloody hell to make a game with, but we have Eve Online that uses Python, right? And it's successful. So each language can overcome its misfallings, but there are some misfallings. You want to use a language for what you want to use it for. Python, being a pretty swift executable language, allows you to write a script. Like if I have, say, a bunch of files that have room names and room descriptions and